My name's Christopher Anatra. You know me as the Quantum Businessman. I am sitting down today with Jan Engels Smith, and we are talking about the IMEC 2020. So, Jan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, a little bit about me. Okay. I'd say that I kind of came to this in a very serendipitous, but also cyclic way, in that I started off my career as a science teacher. I taught biology and chemistry at the high school level in the honors, and did that for about 10 years. And then I became a psychotherapist. And then I had an awakening and went into shamanism. And so I've been a shamanic practitioner for almost 30 years. But I really see that the training that I had in both the sciences, especially, and then, of course, the psychotherapy and being able to understand things with people, and the shamanism, of course, have been a beautiful blend. And I do a lot with shamanism. I've been very active, and it's been a private practice, like I say, for a long time, almost 3 decades. And in that, I had an experience that, we have altered realities all the time in journey work and in shamanism, where you're moving energies and altering things consistently with the power of spirit coming through. But then I started having experiences that were just in my everyday life, and I knew that something was up with that. And so I contacted Cynthia Sue Larson and told her about some of my experiences, and that's
How
how I
long?
got all involved with all
How,
this. Yeah.
how long ago was that?
Um, 3 years ago, it started with the external world. I think when I look back on it, I had experiences in the disassociative ward in the hospital, that I was working as a psychotherapist with multiple personalities. So it went way back into the 70s and 80s, but I never put a label on it outside of, a mental disorder.
That's really interesting. So you're approaching what's happening from a different point of view, a very unique point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've had extraordinary experiences in my life. I always say I have extraordinary stories because I live an extraordinary life. I mean, because I always felt it was because of the shamanism and my background, but now I'm finding that there's a whole lot more to it, that I feel like I'm on a personal road that I'm being led down, that has to do with making things available to people out of the paranormal or out of the um, magical and into the norm, so that healings can take place in a much more regular basis, instead of how that happened. We know how it happened, and we can create it happening. So I'm all about helping people be well. That's my big thing. Like, how can I help you be well? And uh, and working outside of the box, very far outside of the box, and trying to bring that into a practical sense, so that people feel safe with it, as well as nurtured. And I'm an extremely results oriented person. I don't do anything really unless I'm seeing great results. And I wouldn't continue doing it, just for the sake of doing it. I'm seeing something that I'm wanting to harness and bring to others.
That's really interesting. And like you said, like you do it because you're getting the results, and you
Mm-hmm.
probably have clients that can attest to that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I've, I've done over 3,500 soul retrievals, which is a healing experience, working with spirit and bringing energies back to people for healing. And so I feel like I've had a lot of data to work from. And those soul retrievals I studied and documented and really looked for what they were showing me with how not only it was working for that client, but how things sort of work in general to pay attention to. And
That's interesting, because I was the whole concept of a soul retrieval.
mhm.
That concept was probably just introduced to me within the last year or so. I
Okay.
went to Scotland to a retreat there, and
Mhm.
they were doing the soul retrievals. I'm like, what is going on with this? But very, very interesting and very,
Yeah.
very powerful. Very
Yes, they
powerful.
are. Uh-huh.
So I'm sure if people want to find out more about that, they can probably, we'll put links below to your website and
Sure.
how to reach you. But
Yeah,
that,
that isn't really what brings me here, though. I mean, I feel like that's part of my history, and it brought me to where I am today. That isn't necessarily what my talk is going to be about or anything like that. Yeah.
yeah, your talk is going to be about the universes we inhabit.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I realized I'll share an experience that I had that I'm not sure if it's going to be in my talk or not, but brought me to it. I do a retreat every summer that is a week long, and it's out on some beautiful land that I have a large group out there, sometimes anywhere from 50 to 100 people. And I walk this land every day, and I have for years, and several times a day. And I was going down the road with this man. His name's Terry, and we came to a little bridge that has a river that runs through it, under it. And I looked at him and I said, Terry, how'd these boulders get here? And he looked at me and he said, well, Jan, do you want the geological explanation of that? And I realized what a goofy question it was. But I had never noticed these boulders before. And in my line of work, there would be honoring done to things this size, like they're the size of cars, like little Volkswagens or something, really big outcropping of boulders.
Right.
And I said, I've never noticed these before. I can't believe that I haven't seen these things. And so from then on, I made it a point to greet them and to say hello and kind of go out of my way in a goofy kind of way to honor them. And that went on for about 5 years. And then one year I was going down the road with a different person. Terry wasn't there that year. And I looked over it and I said, Colleen, where's the boulders? And she said, what boulders, Jan? And I said, the boulders that I have been saying hello to for the last 5 years, every time I walk down this road. And she said, there's never been any boulders there. And that's when I knew right then that I was being shown a a different reality, a different universe that I'm in two different timelines that I'm experiencing. I'm walking down the road here and I have this one experience, and I'm walking down the road later and it's not there. And I realized that multiple versions of self that were not only omnipresent in our soul, but there's an omnipresence to us in our realities, that all of these different versions are available to us. And that's when I contacted Cynthia. And then the following year, that was like a personal experience for me. And I went back and I shared it in camp and we talked about it. And we're very much working on the new earth energies in these workshops and what the ascension of the earth is all about, and which I believe we're involved in now.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the following year, there were two more extraordinary events that took place that everybody in camp witnessed and had that experience. And so I feel like the training is that I was to move into this place of understanding these things from, again, an energetic basis, in how these multiple universes exist, or multiple realities exist, and how we can get limited to thinking that we're just caught in one place in one situation, when really that's not the truth at all. And how do you then shift from these things consciously, with awareness and with great intent? And what then becomes capable for you in your wellness and in your well-being?
I like the way you describe that. And one thing that jumped out to me when you were speaking is whatever experience, you said everyone in camp had witnessed a similar experience. What, could you elaborate more on that?
Sure. It will take a little bit of wordsmithing here to do it. I'll have to set the stage. But
Okay.
in the camp, there is a tent set up, open tent, like a covering. And I had this custom made to fit this property, because it's bound on two ends by trees. That the tent had to fit in this opening. And this is where we all gather. And it's a huge thing. It sits, again, you can probably get 50 people under this thing, and then they spill out onto the grounds. And so I've always sat in the middle of this to run the groups. Now, again, I want you to preface that this is our 34th practicum that we're going to do this year. So we've been doing this for a long time. Okay. And so I always sit in the middle, and I line up with the fire, and then on the opposite side of the fire is a sweat lodge. So I make sure that the line from the sweat lodge goes through the fire and right into my heart. So that's the way I place myself when I set my chair. So it's always in the same place. That year when we set up the tent, again, it can only go in one place. I was shifted, that line was shifted about 6 or 7 feet to the left, or to the right.
Interesting.
And people are going, Jan, what are you doing way over there? And I was like, I'm lined up with the lodge, the fire. And so everybody that had been coming to these practicums could see that this was an alternative reality, that here it is. I mean, we're not only talking about boulders, not boulder, we're talking a shift of the earth, of the land, of everything being in a different place by 7 feet or so in one direction. And that has opened up all kinds of doors for me in the talking about astrology, like we were doing at our one check-in, where people were talking about planets being there and then not being there, and this happening and then not being, like, well, what is this? Is this actually just different realities? And then we're tapping into those. There's all these different combinations of things that can happen. And then the other one was when we go out and do our outings, there's this one place that we go to on the land again, that you have to go over a really big tree that's fallen. And this tree is monstrous, that you have to climb over. So we would always have a spotter there to help somebody go over the tree, to like boost them up and to get over onto the other side. So that same year when we went to that spot, there was no tree. I mean, there wasn't remains of a tree. There wasn't like cuttings. This was a giant fir tree that was on its side, right, that we had to climb over, and the tree was gone. Right. It was not there. And so again, the whole camp was able to have that experience of what I call markers. In one reality that's there, in another reality it's not there. And so they all were able to witness that, which then, of course, when you can witness the markers and notice them, it brings you into a greater awareness of this reality, of this, it's not even a concept, it's a potential truth that we're experiencing.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because they say that when you experience a timeline shift, or whatever terminology you want to use for it, You can do it as an individual. You could even do it as a group.
Yeah.
So because you were all in that shamanic state of mind and so forth, it made perfect sense for you all to have jumped, to ascended to the next timeline all at the same time.
Yeah, and does it have to be a shamanic state of mind? I'm not, that's what I'm playing with. You know, what are some of the other variables here that definitely when we are there, we are in a very high vibration, which I think does shift us. And that's where you want to be to match the energies of the new earth for sure. But, you know, I think it was ways that I was being shown, we were being shown so that we could get on board with this phenomenon and really work with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you something interesting. It said that when you sneeze, you just exhibited a timeline shift, and especially if you sneeze twice in a row, that's definitely just ascended a timeline. So all these different things. Yeah. Interesting. Wow, and from what you're talking about too, changes in the earth, like the local earth. I know, like where I live on the coast of Connecticut, man, there have been changes like because I live near the water, and there, like there's one part near my house where I used to go out on a Hobie Cat and do a lot of sailing, and now it like in one day it's now like all they call it salt grass, but it's like when the tide is up, it just barely gets to the level of the bottom of the grass, and then it's all mud, and I'm like, what is going? It was never like this for like the 25 years that I've lived here. It's never been like that. So yeah, all these things that if you weren't aware, I wasn't aware, we'd be like, what is going on? Like, am I going crazy? You know, am I misremembering? You know, what is this?
Yeah, and I think that that's what we do. We discount it. We have these amazing things that happen. And then since we don't have a way of explaining it, we just sort of discount it or put it aside instead of really noticing and going, wow, you know, this is something else. This is amazing in what I'm being shown. And that then stimulates your awareness to keep looking for these markers of, because I think they're around us every moment. My personal belief is every moment is a different reality, because I believe that every moment stands by itself. They call it a pixelated universe, to, you know, that a moment, a moment, a moment. And the only thing that actually makes us see it as moving or continual is our mind, you know, puts it all together for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I definitely agree with that. Almost like the frames of a movie.
That's
like
exactly right.
Frame by
frame
frame
of
by
a movie.
frame. Yeah.
And that's what makes shamanism as powerful it is, because a shaman can go to any moment in time that something happened and heal it. And they do that in an altered state. And so if you take that same idea of things being moment to moment to moment and apply it to everyday life, not just, you know, in a shamanic state or just in shamanism, it allows you to realize the vast amount of potentials that are there for every single moment that you can choose. Through, you know, you have to start being consciously aware, and the spirits call it, you know, your conscious intention in which moment you want to materialize and to be in at any given time.
Yes, because the concept is we are creating it all, and that's one of the things that I know for myself. I'm always trying to focus on thinking positive thoughts. Sometimes you'll be like, why did that person do this? Or that person cut me off in traffic. I try like, nope, stop. That person just made a mistake, or somebody distracted them, or they're having a bad day. And because every word we say, every emotion we have can cause that, can cause which way we're going in the timelines. So I'm gonna ask.
Right.
I want to ask you about Mandela effects, and if there were any that kind of, you know, what kind of sparked your interest, or what kind of a, basically what was a Mandela effect that affected you, besides these personal ones we talked about? Were there any bigger ones?
No, I became a became knowledgeable of it through the boulders. And then once I talked to Cynthia, then I could go back in my memory and see all kinds of things. And yes, of course, relate to all the stories that she had printed and, where was I on that page and all that kind of stuff. But no, my first experience with even the terminology was with the boulders. I knew that something was I was being taught something, and how do you come up with that kind of idea? You have boulders and then not boulders. I guess it's my line of work and the way that I think. I knew that there was a bigger picture going on.
Gotcha. Especially with something that
Yeah.
big as a boulder all of a sudden appearing and then years later disappearing. Yeah.
I've had several experiences in my life with so-called lost items that would then just appear again. After I had, like, one time I had my keys on the sofa and I went back to get the keys and they weren't there. And I mean, I ripped that sofa apart. I took the cushions off. I put my hands all around the edges, couldn't find them, couldn't find them, couldn't find them. Left the room, came back, and they were in the middle of the cushion. It's like,
Yeah. Wow.
and so, I always had an idea. I always said nothing is lost to spirit, and that I could get the spirits to bring things back. Now I'm realizing that it's an alternate reality, or the Mandela effect, if you want to do it that way. There's just different cosmologies or ways that you can explain things. But I just didn't have that as a terminology. But I had experiences. I just explained them differently, and then we came in with the Bernstein and the Bernstein Bears, all that kind of stuff was fun. And I was really relating to that too. So.
Yeah, for a lot of people that caught their interest. I know with myself, the big thing that got me going into it was the JFK assassination, because I had seen the Zapruder film over and over and over again. As a kid, I was trying to figure out like what was going on. And then when I saw it a few years ago, I'm like, well, this is not, there's the 6 people in the car. There's the governor of Texas gets shot. Like, events just happen differently. And it really like shook my world and made me want to investigate. It gave me that burning blood desire to want to like really find out what's going on and not accept the current scientific explanation that I'm misremembering, because I know I didn't misremember that. Like, I know that. So
yeah, those big events that have an impact on you, you can usually give great detail as to what was going on for you and what you remember, for sure.
right.
Yeah.
The title of our International Mandela Effect Conference, IMEC, for 2020 is Revelations. Does that make you think of anything, or do you think there's going to be more things revealed to humanity as we continue to become awakened?
Oh gosh, yes. I think that's the next part of our human evolution right there, is that we become much more familiar with this. One of the things that I strongly believe, because again, I was a science teacher and have degrees in science, in the sciences, and I feel that centuries ago, that the separation between science and, at that time, religion, I wouldn't call it religion now, really handicapped both disciplines in a big way, because instead of working together, they started competing. And whenever you're in a competitive place, you lose focus on what you're actually trying to prove.
Right.
And things are discounted because it doesn't fit a particular belief system or modality. And I think with quantum physics and with the quantum mechanics and things like that, that we actually have a bridge now that's going on between some of the sciences and metaphysics, that that quantum explanation sort of fills in and allows other people to get on board. And so I really believe as we evolve as people, and have more and more of these things coming to us, because once it's in the collective like it is now, because all the great work that you guys are doing, it's in the collective, more and more people will start grabbing onto this, where it just becomes the norm. And then we start finding a science around it, and or a healing methods around things that we then can start bringing them into our everyday life, which we would always call miraculous healings. Like in one experience you have a tumor, in the other experience you don't.
Right.
In one experience you have asthma, in another experience you don't. In one experience you have glasses, and and that's basically what my talk is going to be about, is the phenomenon that I've seen in that arena, working with people.
And doesn't that make the placebo effect so much more powerful?
Well, the placebo effect is wonderful. I mean, it is such a wonderful understanding, because it really allows us to be open to the idea that everything is just the power of either a suggestion that you're giving to yourself, and or from somebody else that you give authority to. But it's just, again, like I was saying earlier, it's that intent. If you have an intent for something to work for you, it will work for you. And I've got so many stories in my shamanic background of things happening that just don't make any reasonable sense at all. But it was the power of the intent of the ceremony, and boom, there it happened. I don't believe that it has to be the ceremony that does it, though. I think that there's more going on here that I'm becoming aware of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as we progress, it'll be easier and easier for those that I'll call them, or those of us that try to be like creators of our reality. Like, we want to navigate the timelines. It's just, it'll just become more of a natural to us, as I think it always should have been.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that oppression came from, again, all the rules. I'm a firm believer in the post 2012 also, which 2012, when a lot of the prophecies and a lot of the things that held us captive to oppression were unraveled, and that we're now on the other side of that.
Yes.
And we're beginning to see some of the effects of these new possibilities. Myself and Lightsong is the school that I founded, Lightsong School of 21st Century Shamanism and Energy Medicine. We've worked a lot on that whole idea of what's next, and bringing in the new energy, since we're not held under this oppressive filter anymore.
Exactly. And I think the way I feel about that too, it is, as much as there might be those that might want to put negative intentions out on things, whatever that might be, I think ultimately it's going to crumble. Like, just because we're in a new era of light, like, it's just, everything is, I think, going to go wrong for those that are trying to like continue to control us. Like, we are going to awaken. We are going to understand who we are and where we are, and what we're supposed to be doing here on Earth.
It's the natural evolution of all things. Everything progresses, and if you keep a negative attitude, you'll have a reality that's very dismal.
Yes, exactly. I totally agree with that.
And it's their choice. It's not a reality that I wish to entertain.
Exactly. And everyone can make that choice. Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're in the same reality, just upward.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Or just, the words that we use at Lightsong are collaboration, unification, support, and love. And when you have those as your cornerstones, then everything is built from that. So
unity and love. I totally agree with that. That's the future.
Yeah, collaboration
and collaboration.
Uh-huh.
Like what we're doing now and what we're going to be doing at the IMEC event, and just all of us putting our brain power together and our experiences together and making sense out of things and help. We're just basically all lifting each other up, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Chris, when I met the speakers that one day that we were on that Zoom, I was thrilled. I just felt everybody was coming to the table with such beautiful ideas. I want to be able to just sit and talk to everybody because there's so many things that people said. I want to know more about that, and then of course have share experiences because I feel like some of what they said matches what I was experiencing, and they can give me more of an explanation than possibly I can come up on my own, and vice versa, so.
Exactly. That's exactly what I found too. There's
Mhm.
always somebody that has that little missing piece, and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
that's what I was
Yeah,
looking for. And you know it's true because the answers are already inside of you, and
yeah,
it resonates like, wow, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, for sure. We know that it's inside of us, but it's getting to them. That's the trick, how you find that inside, and that's what my personal practice is all about. Yeah. So.
Yeah, especially too when you're dealing with influences of people that may not be getting it, so to speak, or their life path
Uh-huh.
may be on another trajectory. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
becomes more of an individual process as well, besides working and collaborating with the team, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, I am very excited to hear your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and for those that are watching, the date of the IMEC 2020 event has changed. It's now going to
Mhm.
start on June 20th, and then the 21st is Father's Day, so we're going to take that day off, and then the rest of the week will be IMEC speakers and lots of really interesting information coming to light.
Yes, it's got a beautiful lineup of speakers for sure.
Yeah, all different spectrums. You've got me
Mhm.
from the business kind of esoteric spectrum, and Cynthia with quantum physics, and Cynthia's just amazing and how she's pulled everyone together. Great. Yeah, everybody comes with their little piece that makes them unique, and we're all like
Mhm.
little puzzle pieces, not just us, but a lot of other people, everyone.
Yeah.
And it's nice when the pieces just fit perfectly. We're not jamming anything in there to make it fit. The
Yeah.
puzzle pieces are working out really nice.
Right. Right.
So I want to thank you
Yeah.
very much for your
Get that bigger
time,
picture.
for the bigger picture, because right now it's like we kind of have the
Of
edges of
course.
it made, right? The edges are the easy part, but we don't really know what the
Mhm.
actual image is going to be, but it's all starting to come into view. So is there
Right.
is there
Yeah, it
anything,
was my pleasure. I'm
yeah, and if there's anything in conclusion, anything you also want to mention, please?
I don't think so. I feel like I am really looking forward to this. I'm learning so much as we go along. I feel like I have a lot to offer just because of my varied experiences, but I'm actually going into it with what I can also gain from it too, because
Exactly.
there's so much, and it's so exciting. This is the topic that I get passionate about every day. Like it is absolutely my new passion in the wonder of it and the potential that is right here at our fingertips, and where we can take this when we get people motivated and thinking again outside of the box with the potentials that are here. You can't do the same thing over and over again and get different results. You have
Exactly.
to be willing to change.
You have to be willing to change, and
Think outside the
sometimes it takes the Mandela effect to get people to wake up. Certainly, it definitely helped in my situation. So yeah.
Yeah,
So thank you,
yeah.
Jan, very, very much.
You're welcome.
We look
You're
forward to
welcome.
hearing your talk.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye bye.